You're standing outside a room. Maybe it's a party. Maybe it's a work meeting. Maybe it's just a coffee shop. And you have to say your order out loud to a stranger. But your heart is already racing. And your mind is doing what it always does, playing out every way this could go wrong. The silence that lasts too long. The word that comes out weird. The look on someone's face when it does. And here's the strange part. You haven't even walked in yet. Here's something interesting. A Roman emperor almost 2,000 years ago dealt with this same problem, and he wrote private notes to himself about how to handle it. Not for anyone else to read, not to be remembered, just for himself at night, trying to work through the struggle of being human around other humans. That emperor was Marcus Aurelius, and those notes, now known as the Meditations, became almost by accident one of the most useful guides to the human mind ever written. This is the Stoic Guide to Social Anxiety, and the more you look at it, the more it sounds like therapy. Before we get into the old tools, let's get the science right, because Stoicism without the science can turn into empty positive thinking, and that's not what this is. Social anxiety disorder is not the same as shyness. It's not just being an introvert or finding small talk tiring. In real clinical terms, it's a strong, ongoing fear of being judged badly by other people. And the pain it causes is real and serious. The main thing driving it is something psychologists call anticipatory processing. Before a social event, sometimes days before, the anxious mind doesn't just worry a little. It actively rehearses failure. It builds detailed pictures of things going wrong. It tests every possible embarrassing moment in advance. Then, after the event, something else happens. Post-event processing. The mind replays what happened. It searches through every detail, looking for proof that you said something dumb or looked bad, or that someone was secretly judging you. Two separate loops, one before the event, one after. Both are tiring. Both happen only in the mind. And here's the key thing to notice. Neither loop is about what's really happening in front of you right now. Both are about thinking, either about a future that hasn't happened or a past that's already over. That gap, between what the mind makes up and what's actually real, Marcus had a specific mental exercise that historians call the view from above. He would picture himself zooming out. Above the room, above Rome, above the empire, above the whole world, until whatever was bothering him looked small compared to everything else. It sounds poetic, but really, it does the same thing a therapist does with a technique called decatastrophizing, carefully and deliberately shrinking a scary thought back down to its real size. Try it yourself. Think of your worst social fear. Maybe you trip over your words in a meeting. Maybe you say something awkward at dinner and the table goes quiet. Now ask yourself, will this matter in a week? In a year? And more importantly, will the other people even remember it by tomorrow? Because here's what research actually shows. There's a well-known pattern called the spotlight effect. It proves that we badly overestimate how much attention other people pay to us, how much they notice our mistakes, and how long they remember them. The truth is, everyone else in that room is running their own version of anticipatory processing, their own inner noise, their own anxious thoughts. They are not watching you nearly as closely as you're watching yourself. Marcus understood this without any research at all. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The spotlight isn't nearly as bright as anxiety makes it seem. Here's the most misunderstood part of Stoic philosophy. It's not about hiding your emotions. It's not about pretending fear doesn't exist or acting cold and unbothered. It's about facing hard things on purpose, on your own terms, before they happen. The Stoics had a practice for this called premeditatio malorum, thinking ahead about difficulties. Before a hard conversation or an important event, Marcus would picture what could go wrong. Not to scare himself, not to spiral into panic, but to remove the surprise, to face the fear in a safe, controlled way so it had less power when it actually happened. This works the same way as exposure-based CBT and a method called systematic desensitization. Both work by facing a scary situation on purpose, again and again, in a safe setting until the fear fades. Here's how to actually do it. Before a presentation, a dinner, or whatever the event is, instead of pushing the anxious thought away and hoping it disappears, sit with it. Give it 2 minutes. Ask yourself, what's the actual worst thing that could happen here? I freeze. I forget what to say. Someone looks unimpressed. Then ask the most important follow-up question. Can I survive that? The answer is almost always yes. Fear loses most of its power the moment you look at it directly instead of avoiding it. Marcus put the underlying rule beautifully. If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. For a nervous mind about to walk into a room, that's incredibly freeing. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be honest. Being liked by everyone was never possible. Showing up with real effort always has been. Let's put all of this together with a real example. You've been invited to a work dinner. You don't know most of the people there. The day before, your mind is already doing its thing, imagining silences, replaying awkward moments before they've even happened, wearing you out before you even show up. Here's how you use the 3 tools. First, sort out what's actually yours. Whether people at the table like you tonight, not yours. Whether you show up honest and present, yours. That's the whole job. Everything else, you let go of. Second, shrink the fear down to size. Worst case, you have one awkward moment. That's survivable, and statistically, the other person probably won't even remember it by morning. Third, think ahead, briefly. Maybe you'll go quiet in the group. That's fine. You don't need to perform. You can ask one real question and actually listen to the answer instead of trying to impress people. Notice what happens here. The goal quietly changes. It shifts from impress everyone, which you can't control, and which always creates anxiety, to show up honestly, which you can control, which feels calmer, and which is actually achievable. That shift in the goal is the whole practice. It's not about removing fear completely. It's about putting your effort in the right place. Marcus Aurelius never had a clinical word for social anxiety. He didn't know about the spotlight effect or cognitive restructuring or systematic desensitization. But he understood something that took modern psychology hundreds of years to prove with data. Most of our suffering doesn't come from what actually happens to us. It comes from what we tell ourselves might happen, and from where we choose to put our energy in response. The dichotomy of control, the view from above, thinking ahead instead of avoiding. These aren't just old ideas. They're real, working techniques that happen to exist 2,000 years before they got their modern names. So next time you're standing outside that room, heart already racing, mind already spinning, try asking the question Marcus kept asking himself, alone, writing to no one but himself in the dark. What here is actually mine to control? Everything else? You were never really carrying it in the first place. Let it go. If this meant something to you, the next video in this series looks at how the Stoics dealt with rejection, using Epictetus this time, not Marcus, because Epictetus looked at it from a completely different angle that I think you'll find even more useful. Subscribe if you want philosophy that's actually grounded in something real, not just quotes over a nice background. See you in the next one.